Welcome back to Strange Form. Today, we will be looking at KAIYODO's Mega SOFUBI Advance Mega Soft Vinyl Model Painted Collection Advance Series. Like the big chap's inner jaw, that's a mouthful. Measuring just short of 18 inches tall, this soft vinyl figure usually retails for around $200, but can be had for less if you keep your eye on the different auction sites as well as Mercari. Figure number MSA-005 in KAIYODO's Mega SOFUBI line, the first being the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the second being Iron Man, the third Evangelion Eva 01, and the fourth being a blue whale, as in the aquatic mammal. And finally, we arrive at the company's fifth release, which takes us where no one can hear us scream. Like most vinyl figures, this is not so much a toy as it is a static display piece. Inside the package, we have the info slip, which is 80% in Japanese, and informs us that the figure was manufactured in 2015. The figure itself is wrapped in plastic sheeting to keep scuffs and blemishes from happening during shipping, a practice not employed here enough in the States. I will say that other than some anatomical inaccuracies, the figure looks pretty good right off. At first seeing it, I was concerned that this figure was going to be too derpy. The head and face in the production stills looked like the jaw jetted backwards just a little too much, giving it a little bit of an overbite. But it's nowhere near as bad as it looked in the production stills, so I'm fairly happy. As you can see, the tail needs to be assembled and is extremely rigid, so it's definitely more of a stand for the figure than anything you can pose. The carapace dome is removable and fits really loosely, which I think causes 90% of the issues with the profile. As you can see here, the nose portion of the skull protrudes a little further than it should, causing the dome to not properly rest above the upper lip. Although most of the proper details are here, because the entire thing is rotomold vinyl, a lot of fine details are a little bit soft, and the paint applications are subtle to the point of almost not existing. This is one of those figures that I think could be brought to a much higher standard if you detailed it yourself. As I said before, the dome causes most of the problems regarding proper head anatomy, but this is something I think I can easily solve with a heat gun, as it should be fairly easy to reform. The head and neck could probably stand to move a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch forward, as the middle of the bow sits squarely between the shoulder tubes, and this one is recessed just a little more than the movie version, but it's not terribly noticeable. And honestly, without the dome on the head, it's even better proportioned. The dome itself is slightly too large for the figure, especially towards the rear of the head, which isn't a giant issue, but something that I noticed. The tail affixes easily and is much more rigid than the rest of the figure, so I'm not actually sure heating this one up would allow for you to repose it, especially without significant warping or damage. All in all, not a bad big chap. Most SOFUBI alien figures are of the super deformed variety, and so not as imposing as this one. And the ones that are somewhat more accurate or well painted, such as the 24-inch Medicom vinyl statue sold on Sideshow, are overpriced to the point of near obscenity. But why are vinyl figures so blasted expensive in the first place? Well, the answer can be found in three parts. First, polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, is made from chlorine extracted from salt and ethylene found in crude oil. So from a manufacturing standpoint, PVC and vinyl prices tend to fluctuate with oil speculation. But that's not the whole story. SOFUBI usually means a product made in Japan, the name being Japanese shorthand for soft vinyl. But with the popularity of vinyl figures extending globally, the name has started to become synonymous with any injection molded or rotomolded PVC figure. This one is designed by a Japanese company, but according to the maker's mark, was manufactured in China, which means that the figure is probably mass-produced to a greater degree than many of Japan's other popular vinyl runs. Not only is the material expensive, but so is the rotomold process and the paint applications used to produce these figures, as many paints won't adhere to the vinyl, or worse, start to break it down. And true SOFUBI figures, produced in Japan, are often handcrafted in exceedingly small batches, with techniques dating back to the 1960s. The molds often not surviving much more than a short run, so the answer as to why they are so expensive is again threefold: the rising cost of materials, complex manufacturing techniques, and small batch scarcity, causing small figures like these tiny 4-inch secret base Super 7 aliens to go for more than $80, as they are solid vinyl and produced in such small quantities that you probably will never see one in a collectible store. And on a side note, if you have the Marmot 1/4 scale Super Robo Hero vinyl model kit, you don't need to buy the terribly expensive Medicom vinyl statue, as the two are identical. and Medicom simply assembled and painted this one. However, if you don't have the Marmot, the Medicom is probably the way to go, even at $700, as unassembled Marmot kits are now fetching as much as $1,500. And other than mine here, I only know of 3 others being sold on the open market. So welcome to the wonderful world of big chap collecting. It's not for the faint of heart. One place where vinyl figures tend to display better than resin kits is multi-tonal lighting. The mold casting process allows for fairly seamless design, and the glossy nature of both vinyl and the paint scheme catch every specular highlight. All of these shots here are after I grabbed the heat gun and reformed the dome quite a bit, as well as trimmed a little bit off the nose of the skull underneath so that the dome would seat properly. This made an enormous difference to the look of the figure. As a matter of fact, I'm so pleased with it that I may actually do some fine detailing with an airbrush. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Vinyl is fairly easy to work with, and this one could really be a modifier's dream project. The core components are all there, and it also may be the cheapest large-scale vinyl alien on the market. On top of correcting the fit of the dome, I also roughed up the front a little bit in order to bring it closer to how the fogged-up movie version looked in most close-ups. I thought about modifying it further, but figured people would probably want to see a clean review, as most are probably just going to remove it from the box and place it on their desk. And my complaints about the fit of the clear plastic dome or the size of the hands or position of the head may seem like nitpicking or trivial, but there are precious few truly accurate big chap figures out there. I don't know about any of you, but I'm hoping and praying Alien Romulus doesn't give us the giant, exaggerated Muppet version of the perfect organism that we've gotten from Resurrection on. So currently I'm a little sensitive to accuracy in the alien's design, as I'm on pins and needles regarding the property finally returning to both the big and small screen. And 2 bits of news that I was most excited to hear regarding these projects is that the Alien Romulus design is going to be a cross between the big chap and the chicken-legged big chap from Isolation. And the second bit was that the TV show will be bringing the beast back to an ancient and highly evolved origin, rather than the machinations of a disgruntled flute-playing android. My overall verdict on this one is that there are some accuracy issues, but nowhere near as bad as some of the other releases. And if you really want this thing to shine, you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and do some modifications. As I said, some of the details are a little bit soft, but the way the thing picks up light makes up for a lot of that. A few things I would change would be a slightly smaller dome, a little bit more of a prominent chin. I would also move the head forward almost an inch and make the hands slightly smaller as well as the rib cage just a little bulkier. Unfortunately, mine does have a slight cant, largely because one of the legs is bent a little more than the other, but this is something I can also easily fix with a heat gun. Here he is next to the 1981 Tsukuda Hobby Japan Kenner Alien copy, which puts him squarely at 1/5 scale, meaning he's basically Kenner Alien size. And here he is next to the Hot Toys 1/6 scale Big Chap. Though the Hot Toys figure is far more detailed, the Mega SOFUBI looks more like Baloji Bideo's proportions. All in all, this is a solid figure, but I don't know that it's worth the $200. So if you can find it for cheaper, I would pick it up. But there are other offerings out there, such as the Kotobukiya, that I would pick up before this one. What do you think? Is this one on your radar, or is it an easy pass? Let me know in the comments. And as always, remember, never stop collecting.